Is this for Gina?
Trains. Now on Uber. Get 10% credit back with every ticket.
Fish not buying today?
Nah, nothing. Seems like they're as bored as I am.
I guess what you need is a Red Bull. The energy drink.
I don't need Red Bull for fishing.
Not for you. For them.
For fish?
Wait, watch. Red Bull gives them wings.
Oh, not bad! But not good either. Fishing.
At Marks Electrical, we'll not only deliver our domestic appliances next day for free, we'll install them for you too. Our in-house team are trained in gas and electric appliance installation. Right now, get free installation on any Bosch freestanding laundry appliance and a 12-month supply of Ariel or Fairy detergent when you buy selected Bosch washing machines. No wonder we've been given a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Shop now at Marks Electrical. Why wouldn't you?
Of there being a deterioration in the relationship.
When a murder's committed, it's always a race against time, to find the truth, to separate fact from fiction, to catch the killer, and to make sure that justice is served. But what happens when the truth vanishes with the victim? I'm Dr. Richard Shepherd, and I've spent my entire career as a forensic pathologist, performing nearly 23,000 autopsies. I've learned that the dead don't hide the truth, and they never lie. Through me, you'll be hearing directly from the victim. With the aid of a state-of-the-art laboratory, using groundbreaking technology, I'll be investigating a series of intriguing crimes, where, from the victims' bodies, I'll reveal to you the truth behind these murders. Little Venice in London is famous for the houseboats that make their way along the Grand Union Canal. But in May 2015, this picture postcard location became a crime scene when a member of the public made a shocking discovery.
In the Little Venice area of West London, near to Paddington Railway Station, it's an area where quite a lot of people live on barges as their place of residence, and two people were in a canal boat and heard a noise against the side of their boat, which caused them to look outside, and they saw a suitcase in the canal.
The two friends on that houseboat looked down into the water and saw distinctive red hair flowing out of it.
They became very concerned and decided to call the police.
Well, police obviously need to essentially find out what's happened, so being able to recover the suitcase from the canal, which is in itself potentially quite a challenging task because it's in the water, so police have got to make a decision as to whether they enter the water or not. If they're able to actually reach and remove the item without entering the water, that is obviously safer, so they've got to consider that. Then also the actual weight of the suitcase, because at that point they don't know what's in the suitcase, and it's in a body of water, so may well be full of water, which will add to the weight.
Having retrieved the suitcase, police and forensic teams were shocked at what it contained.
What was found in the suitcase was a body that had been placed essentially in the fetal position. The body was wrapped in bin bags and also a curtain was placed in the suitcase.
When a body is found in a suitcase in a canal, that's a homicide. That's a suspicious death.
The police immediately launched a murder investigation.
The first thing that they will need to do is identify who that person is in the suitcase, because it'd be very difficult for the police to find out who killed them without knowing who they are.
So the police looked to the body for answers. The body that was found in the canal was folded inside a suitcase. It was in the fetal position and wrapped in curtains and bin bags. There was no ID, no purse, no other obvious identification. But it's still possible for this body to reveal a lot of information. Even if the body is reduced to simply a skeleton, if you know how to read bones, you can get a lot of information from that, the age at death, the height, and from the shape of the pelvis, the sex of the individual. Some decomposition had set in, but the organs, tissues and skin were still largely intact, thanks to the cooler water temperature of the canal, which slowed down the rate of decomposition. So a body like this, where there is still soft tissue, has many more secrets it can reveal to a forensic pathologist. In the mortuary, the body can be measured and weighed, and the teeth can help determine the age too, since they erupt throughout life. For instance, the wisdom teeth appear in your 20s. In this case, the body had its wisdom teeth, and the shape of the pelvic bone indicated it was female. From all this, it could be determined with some certainty that she was a white woman, approximately 5'2", weighing 8 stone, and it was clear that she was young, in her early 20s. But there was no missing persons report for anyone like that. So who was she? With little to go on, even forensic evidence proved limited.
Ultimately, when somebody's body is in water, it's likely to remove things like DNA, opportunities to recover evidence. For me, the most important thing is to make an appeal via the media, via all forms of media, asking for witnesses to come forward, asking for people to report in anybody that they're concerned about, to try and work through opportunities to identify who the person is. Because once that's established, it opens up a vast array of other opportunities to identify if there are any other scenes that need to be cordoned and searched and examined. Because, for example, where she was actually placed into the water, if it was different to where the suitcase was found.
Then detectives got a breakthrough. A man called Thomas Kochik contacted police to report his girlfriend missing. Kochik later identified the body as that of Marta Ligman. Journalist Henry Vaughan remembers the case well.
I first heard about the case of Marta Ligman when her body was discovered in a suitcase in the Grand Union Canal. I was working as a court reporter at the time. It's a very unusual set of circumstances, so that is something that sticks in the mind.
Marta Ligman came to the UK in 2012 and she worked in a delicatessen in Harlesden in northwest London. Very highly thought of by her boss, described as a very pleasant girl with aspirations to get married, to have a family, to settle in the UK. The very, very pleasant demeanour, very helpful and outgoing.
She'd come over from Poland to the United Kingdom to live and work and make a life for herself. A very brave thing for her to have done, actually.
She was very popular, had lots of friends, and well liked by everyone who knew her.
In London, Marta moved in with her Polish boyfriend, Tomasz Kochik, who she'd first met back in Poland.
Marta met Kochik on an internet chat room.
Both Polish nationals, so they formed a friendship, formed a relationship.
Thomas Kujic was quite a bit older than Marta, around 38 at the time. He was also from Poland and lived in London working as a forklift truck driver. He'd also spent some time in Ireland before moving to the UK.
That relationship then developed into what seemingly was a very, very affectionate, loving relationship, to the extent that Marta took the decision to move from her home in Poland to London, a big step for her, to set up home really with Thomas Kujic.
She probably went into that relationship feeling so happy, so excited, and she may even have fallen for him before they physically met. She may have fallen for him whilst they're still, you know, maybe talking online.
At the start, they seemed to have a very good relationship and she was very happy. Their neighbours said they seemed like a perfect couple, and also that Kujic seemed quite protective of Marta.
Kujic was around 15 years older than Marta. He was a builder by trade and came into this country purely for work purposes. He was a very caring person towards Marta. He was always concerned about her well-being and he wanted to look after her. So they had a very happy and settled relationship. Marta wanted to get married, she wanted to have children.
And she thought when she met Kujic that that was his dream as well. This is what I want too. I want a wife, I want a family, I want children. I'm very traditional. So that would have played into everything that she wanted.
To people from the outside, seemingly very happy.
So how did this young woman's life end so tragically?
Things can change literally overnight.
In 2015, police launched a murder investigation after the body of 23-year-old Polish delicatessen worker Marta Ligman was found folded into a suitcase and dumped in a London canal.
When her body was found in a suitcase in the Grand Union Canal, it's a very unusual set of circumstances, so it was immediately a high-profile case.
It's important to recognise that the location where Marta's body was found in the canal is not necessarily the same as the deposition site, i.e. where the suitcase entered the canal, and also there may be other locations where events have taken place that would inform the investigation about the events that led to Marta's death.
There were witnesses who had seen the suitcase in the canal and dismissed it without causing any suspicion in their minds about the suitcase, but it had travelled a significant distance to the point of Little Venice where Marta's body was discovered.
However, what may well be preserved because of the fact that Marta is enclosed within the suitcase is evidence of injuries or evidence that would be later inform the investigation as to how she died.
The post-mortem showed she'd been in the canal for between 7 and 10 days. We can estimate this because the water in the canal where Marta's body was found would have been colder than the air temperature and therefore slowed down the decomposition of her body, making it easier to determine the exact time of death. We know that she was folded up very tightly in a small space with her knees up to her chest. This position would have limited movement of the rib cage and stopped air being drawn into her lungs. It would have been almost impossible to get her folded into that tight space unless she was immobile. But what we don't know is whether she was dead when she was put into the suitcase or just unconscious. And the terrible truth is that Marta might still have been alive when she was thrown into the canal.
The most distressing detail that the pathologist could not rule out that Marta was not alive or dead when she was placed into the suitcase.
In their hunt for the killer, police needed to eliminate the most obvious suspect from their inquiries, the man who'd first reported her missing, her boyfriend, Thomas Kujic.
We know that the most likely person to kill any woman is their partner or ex-partner. So intimate partner homicide, that's where a man kills his partner or ex-partner is actually the biggest category of homicide for women. So as soon as Marta is identified, Kojik is at the top of the list straight away.
Kojik was 15 years older than Marta Ligman, and I think it's quite important just to consider that when they met online, Marta was a teenager.
That is a bit of a red flag, because statistically, somebody much older than a woman especially is going to be targeting them because they are more malleable. They are more vulnerable, they're less experienced in life.
So I think in terms of power imbalance and the dynamic within the relationship, he was likely to be more sort of influential in the way that things were within the relationship, which again could have affected the way that they lived their lives together and subsequent events.
There are extra risks, I think, to meeting somebody online. It's very easy to present yourself as something other than you actually are online. And it's very, very difficult to question any of that. And if you do those first few meetings online, by the time you are face to face with that person, you think you already know a lot about them. And so your instincts in that first face-to-face meeting will be very much dampened.
Marta had lived in the UK for about 3 years, and friends had noticed that Marta's behaviour had started to change, so she'd become quieter, more reserved, and some concerns generally were being noted by people that knew her, or they felt that something was not quite right within the relationship.
The changes in her started to happen quite quickly. She started to withdraw, she started to lose weight, she started being less happy, seeing less of her friends, and that concerned them.
Kojik became very controlling, and her friends said she wasn't the sort of happy-go-lucky person she used to be.
Within 3 years, Kojik had also become obsessively jealous about Marta.
As time developed during their relationship, things began to take a turn for the worse. His behaviour became more controlling, more coercive, and even obsessive about Marta's movements and her whereabouts.
And he was very intense about it. Every single thing she did, he was there. He was following her, he was tracking her, he was isolating her.
And asking a lot of very searching questions, and generally exhibiting an air of suspicion about the way that Marta was behaving. Without any grounds that are known of, but just a very controlling kind of approach taken by Kojik at that time.
He would turn up at her work every day. He'd pick her up from her work because he didn't trust her. There's even one occasion where he demanded that the boss of the deli she worked in show him the CCTV to prove that she'd been working there.
And that was quite concerning to her boss.
The first control that always comes in is what we call jealousy code. So he would have been saying things like, don't like it when you talk to other men, makes me feel really, really jealous, don't do it. And she probably thought, oh, fair enough, I won't do that, I'm not going to wind him up. But there would have come a point where she did something to break that rule. Not on purpose, and he would have punished her for it. And that punishment will set the tone for everything that happens going forward.
One of her friends recalled an occasion where Marta wore some very thick rimmed spectacles in what the friend thought was to try to hide the fact that she had some facial bruising.
This made everyone very concerned about Marta's well-being.
The behaviour progressed to essentially monitoring Marta's behaviour, moving more towards what can generally be described as a controlling or coercive type relationship.
People who are controlling and who use coercive control are actually trying to trap you into a relationship with them. So that means that you can't get out of this relationship. You've committed to me, you can never leave.
To build the case against Kojik being the killer, police needed to know if Marta's body revealed signs of a controlling and abusive relationship. So what could Marta's body tell us about the final tragic hours of her life? When Marta's body was removed from the suitcase, it was evident she'd suffered a severe beating. She had numerous injuries to her face and her body that must have been inflicted in the hours before she was thrown into the canal. But she also had other injuries that were older. Bruises can be aged because they change colour over time, going from purple and blue to yellow and green and finally to brown. Marta's body was covered in old and fresh bruises. But it's the fractures that are most revealing. A recent fracture looks like this, and here you can see the clear separation in the bones. But these broken ends will knit back together over a period of weeks and months. And Marta also had several healed fractures. So what her body revealed was that she had been subjected to a prolonged and savage attack immediately before her death. But it also showed that this was part of a long history of physical abuse.
Older injuries would be consistent with what the friends had described in terms of there being a deterioration in the relationship and more violence being used towards Marta.
Kujic used to play loud music in the flats, which is believed to have covered up him beating her.
So I think she did something trivial or something that he made up, and he probably really, really hurt her. But that's a warning for the future. That's your punishment. It's what we call the 3 C's. So it's control, challenge, consequence. So the control is in place, rules of the relationship. You will not make me jealous. There's some kind of challenge to that. Maybe she's caught speaking to somebody. What are the consequences? The 3rd C, violence. Now, the consequences reinstate the control. She thinks, I'm never going to do that again. I am never going to speak to another man, or I'm just never going to do anything ever to upset this man because I'm no scared of him. She was literally trapped like a hostage in this relationship with him.
There was still no hard evidence linking Kochik to the assaults or the murder. But Marta's phone messages were raising further suspicions among friends and colleagues.
Her boss at the delicatessen received a message basically to say that Marta was not going to attend work because her mum was sick in Poland and needed to leave. Which was described as being out of character for Marta, that Marta would not have sent a message that way. She would have gone into the shop and explained. Also, messages were sent to Marta's friends to explain that she'd left Kochik. So there was quite an amount of communication from Marta's Facebook account and from her device.
On Facebook Messenger, sending one of her friends over about 50 messages they exchanged between them. The friends initially believed she was talking to Marta, but she became suspicious when the messages began to start suggesting a threesome.
The level of conduct and the content of the communication caused some alarm to Marta's friend, as it also included activity about engaging in sexual conduct together. Marta's friend clearly thought this was uncharacteristic of Marta, and it raised alarm bells in her head. She went straight to her home address to see if she was okay, but nobody was at home.
Versace, bright crystal.
Is this for Gina?
Trains, now on Uber. Get 10% credit back with every ticket.
Fish not buying today?
Nah, nothing. Seems like they're as bored as I am.
I guess what you need is a Red Bull. The energy drink.
I don't need Red Bull for fishing.
Not for you. For them.
The fish?
Wait, watch. Red Bull gives them wings.
Oh, not bad! Oh, but not good either. Fishing.
At Marks Electrical, we'll not only deliver our domestic appliances next day for free, we'll install them for you too. Our in-house team are trained in gas and electric appliance installation. Right now, get free installation on any Bosch freestanding laundry appliance and a 12-month supply of Ariel or Fairy detergent when you buy selected Bosch washing machines. No wonder we've been given a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Shop now at Marks Electrical. Why wouldn't you?
In London in May 2015, the body of 23-year-old Marta Ligman was found folded up in a suitcase floating in London's Grand Canal. The post-mortem revealed bruises and fractures, proving that she'd been subjected to a long history of physical abuse. The prime suspect was her boyfriend, Tomasz Kuzik. Messages sent from Marta's phone and computer before her body was found suggested she had left her boyfriend and returned to Poland. But these didn't seem in character. Friends and family feared she was missing.
It was quite common for Marta to speak to her mum on a very regular basis, if not daily. So obviously Marta wasn't doing that.
Her lack of contact with friends and family, again, against her demeanour, uncharacteristic of Marta not to speak to her mother every day.
Marta's mum made contact with Tomasz Kuzik to establish what had happened, and he explained that Marta had left him, which also fitted with messages that were being sent purporting to be from Marta.
But once Marta's body was found, it became clear to police that she could not have sent those messages. She was already dead in the canal. The only person with access to Marta's devices to send messages was Kuzik.
Kuzik made contact using Marta's Facebook account. He messaged one of her friends. The messaging was uncharacteristic of Marta. It alerted her friend immediately that potentially there could be a problem.
So there was a clear attempt by Kuzik to mislead a number of people that knew Marta and were clearly going to ask questions about where she was.
He was just trying to make it all go away, stop anyone reporting her missing, and maybe give himself some time to think. In creating this kind of web of lies, trying to convince everybody maybe that Marta's still alive, so that he stops people coming to look for her because he knows his name's going to be at the top of the list if she is found and identified.
Kuzik didn't report Marta missing, and despite her mother phoning him and asking him to look for her and ask what he was doing to try and trace her, he didn't report her missing until her body was found, which was around 10 days later.
This case attracted heavy media attention, and as a result of that, Kuzik was alerted to the fact that Marta's body has been found, and that was the point that he contacted the police to report her as missing. In fact, members of her family had tried to ask him to report her as missing previous to the date of her body being discovered. Kuzik simply refused to do so.
The fact that he hadn't reported her missing until Marta's body was found in the canal clearly caused suspicion and ultimately led to the arrest of Kuzik as a suspect for Marta's murder.
But under police questioning, Kuzik denied murdering Marta.
He did not accept that he killed Marta and denied his involvement in the murder of Marta.
The explanation that Kocic gave was that he had come home from work and found Marta dead. He thought that Marta had had a heart attack because he and Marta had been taking amphetamines in the preceding days.
Kocic was fearful that he would be in trouble with the police for providing her with those drugs. His version of events was that he panicked.
They'd been involved in rough sex activity, as he described it, and he felt that those things combined would cause him to be blamed effectively for her death.
But did Marta's body support Kocic's version of events? Kocic claimed that Marta had died from an amphetamine overdose following days of drug-fueled bondage sessions. And although internal swabs were taken, there was no evidence of recent sexual activity. Amphetamines can be detected in the bloodstream for, on average, 48 hours after being consumed, and on human hair, as long as 90 days afterwards. Some amphetamine users take the drug through what is called skin popping. These are subcutaneous injections that go into the tissue rather than the blood vessels. And what we would see then is lots of ulcerated areas on the legs and forearms. But there was no evidence of this on Marta's body. If she was injecting, there would be track marks, and there was no evidence of that either.
He said that he came home and found Marta dead on the sofa, and she had problems and she was taking drugs and she'd obviously overdosed. And the most classic way to defend yourself against killing somebody you're supposed to love is to denigrate them in some way and make them responsible and make you the innocent victim of their awful behaviour. And that's what he did.
Kocic did, however, admit to disposing of Marta's body.
Eventually, as the evidence unfolded and was presented to him and his legal team, he changed his version of events. He admitted that he did conceal her body in the suitcase.
He confessed to the police that what he then did was place Marta into the suitcase. He walked down a distance of about half a mile and placed the suitcase in the Grand Union Canal near to Scrubs Lane.
The suitcase then travelled in the direction of Little Venice, down the canal for a significant period of time.
Scrubs Lane is about 2.5, maybe 3 miles from the Little Venice site where Marta's body was ultimately found. As a result of Kocic's account, one of the things that the police will do is check and try and corroborate an account that's given. That could include CCTV. The CCTV revealed that Kocic had walked from the home address to the Grand Union Canal, a distance of about half a mile.
He was seen wheeling the suitcase on his way to the canal along a number of streets, past commuters, towards the canal, carrying this heavy suitcase, which was so heavy on CCTV you could see that the wheels were buckling. He'd also taken a stick with him in an attempt to submerge the suitcase.
And then shortly after that, he was seen again walking back towards his home address, this time without the suitcase. But from the waist down, it was noticed on the CCTV he appeared to be wet, which would be consistent with the fact that he had been in the canal seeking to dispose of the suitcase in the way that he described.
This man didn't have many resources. He didn't appear to have a vehicle. I think if he had a vehicle, he might not have chosen the canal. Throwing a body into a canal is a high-risk strategy because bodies tend to be found when they're in bodies of water that are quite small.
While CCTV footage confirmed Kocic's story that he'd disposed of the body, there was more to come.
Yeah, with that extra understanding of what the events were, confirmed now by the CCTV, that enabled the police to search areas where they knew that Kocic had travelled. and that led to the recovery of identity documents belonging to Marta.
Of great significance was that en route to and from the canal, Marta's identification card was found damaged and burnt. Again, evidence of Kocik trying to conceal her identification from the police.
And that confirmed and corroborated and supported the understanding of what had taken place in Marta's death.
With evidence that Kocik had tried to conceal Marta's identity, police charged him with murder.
I've prosecuted a number of homicide cases over the years, but this case particularly stands out in my time on the homicide unit.
The court case was a particularly horrifying one. The prosecutor warned the jury that they were going to hear some horrendous details, and particularly the detail that she still may be alive when she went into the water.
Look at this room. Are we in the right room? Oh my goodness.
Dear team, just wanted to give you a heads up on the project delivery timeline. We are on track to meet the targets, but have received some curveball feedback from senior management. Imperative we get you across this. Kind regards, Colin.
Take your holiday seriously. British Airways Holidays. Atoll protected.
At Parkdean Resorts, you've got more to choose from. More stunning beaches close by. More holiday parks in more spectacular locations than anyone else. A fantastic range of accommodation to suit every budget. Loads of epic and great value entertainment and activities to enjoy. And with family holidays from just £99 at 66 award-winning UK holiday parks. Holiday happy is never far away with Parkdean Resorts. Hurry, book your next family break today.
Peloton is more than a bike. It makes strength, boxing, or maybe yoga your new thing. It turns a run into a pretty epic workout. Just maybe not today. It's a calming word when you need it most.
Begin to relax.
And if you need a quick break, it's your perfect escape. It makes working out, watch this, workout for everyone. This is Peloton.
Era brought her water intake to new levels, just by flavoring ordinary water from thin air. It's that healthy, untouched water with the satisfaction of taste through scent. The only thing standing in the way of that important meeting? This. Air Up. Excite the ordinary.
Hi, can I help you?
Maybe. I'd like to look at Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Burberry, Ray-Ban, Purcell, Oakley, Costa, Michael Kors, and Ralph Lauren.
What colors?
Sunglass Hut. Find every shade of you.
In May 2015, Tomasz Kocik was charged with the murder of his girlfriend Marta Ligman. Her body had been found in the Grand Union Canal earlier in the year after a boat owner spotted human hair coming out of a suitcase floating in the water. The post-mortem revealed a history of domestic violence, but whilst her boyfriend admitted disposing of her body, he denied murder. He claimed she had died of a drug overdose. Pathology proved that was a lie. Five months after his arrest, Kocik was brought before the Old Bailey in London. Representing the case for the Crown Prosecution Service was senior prosecutor Devi Karan.
I had been working on this case for a long time to prepare the case to present it at trial. A homicide prosecution requires a lot of preparation. We have to find as much evidence as possible to prove every element of the offence of murder beyond reasonable doubt, to prove that Kocik was the killer of Marta. It was a very intense atmosphere in the courtroom. There was a lot of press and media attention surrounding this case.
I attended court when he faced trial, It was one I covered from start to finish. The case of Marta was a very harrowing case, just the details of the injury she suffered. The prosecutor warned the jury that they were going to hear some horrendous details.
It was very distressing for friends and family to have to come to court and listen to the distressing details that were presented about Marta's life.
The prosecution outlined the case against Kocic.
We relied on the strength of the evidence to present a clear and coherent case to the jury. The evidence consisted of various strands, including CCTV evidence to prove his movements at the time of her killing, evidence of her identity card that was found burnt and damaged, and the pathological evidence that gave the police the indication as to how Marta's injuries were sustained. He clearly ruled out natural causes as a result of her death.
The court also heard how the obsessive and violent Kocic behaved towards Marta.
We used the evidence of her friends and family who provided strong evidence of a change of demeanour in Marta. Her behaviour had changed. She became withdrawn, sad. She had visible facial injuries which caused her friends and her manager significant concern about Kocic's controlling and coercive behaviour.
A man like Kocic is going to want somebody like Marta to fall for him. So he's going to present himself, as the perfect boyfriend. You've met the one. And he would use all his manipulative skills in doing that. Trouble with people like Kocic is they can do that for a while. They can't keep it up. So they have to get that commitment from somebody like Marta very, very quickly because they know it's all going to fall apart. They know that their true self is going to come out very, very quickly. Kocic is such an extreme example of a fixated, obsessed and very insecure man. He was entitled, I own you, you're my property, don't you dare try and leave me because you will pay.
Kocic himself decided not to take the stand, but his legal team presented his version of events.
Kocic claimed he returned home from work to find Marta already dead. He said that he believed Marta had died of a heart attack and thought he would get blamed.
Anybody who's in court is going to try and defend themselves. They don't want to go to prison, and this has got a life sentence on the end of it. He had to have a story for Marta being dead. So he picks another implausible story that Marta was a drug addict and she had been taking drugs. Denigrating the victim and making them the bad person and you the victim, that is incredibly common.
The pathology had conclusively proved drugs played no part in Marta's death. Kocic's case was falling apart.
So his whole defence at court that he just found her dead and for some reason decided to put her into a suitcase instead of phoning the paramedics, I mean, it's all absolutely ridiculous. And this was not a sophisticated defence. He's in a position now where he's proven to be a liar.
Kocic, while in court, he didn't show any remorse at all. He was very cocky, and the lies he told were very distressing for Marta's family, claiming that, this had happened during rough sex and, that she'd been taking drugs with him.
And obviously distressing for her friends and family to see Kocic in the dock. In every homicide case that we prosecute, we have the opportunity of meeting the victims' families. Marta's mother did provide a victim impact statement, which was very, very sad.
She was very tearful. She told how she was begging this man to help look for her when all along he was the one who killed her.
The texts Kocic sent to Marta's friends were also read out in court.
Kocic sent messages to Marta's friends to suggest that she was still alive. He wanted to make it look like she'd left him. And when her mother was begging him to look for her, but he pretended that she'd just run away and didn't want to get in touch with him.
Initially, the evidence from the telephones went against the prosecution case because the evidence showed that Marta's telephone was used after the prosecution say her body was placed in the canal. However, at trial, that evidence assisted the case for the prosecution because it proved that, in fact, her phone was being used by Kocic to create a false trail for the officers.
Kocic had proved to be a calculated, controlling liar, but it was Marta's body that would deliver the irrefutable evidence of her final moments. The autopsy revealed that sometime between the evening of the 29th of April and the 1st of May, Kocic beat Marta unconscious in a sustained attack that could have lasted minutes or hours, or possibly even days. When he thought she was dead, he wrapped her in curtains and bin bags and stuffed her into a suitcase with her head between her knees. He then dragged the case half a mile to the canal before dumping her in the water. So how did Marta actually die? The widespread heavy bruising tells us all about her last hours. A bruise is just blood leaking from damaged blood vessels, but it requires pressure in the bloodstream for that leakage to occur. Marta's body was just covered in bruises, and it was quite clear that this could only have happened if her heart was still beating. Although she was alive when she received these injuries, it was the repetitive blunt force trauma to her torso and legs that killed her.
It's not clear exactly at what point that took place, but that could have taken place while she was in the suitcase, either when Kocic was walking down towards the canal, or indeed after the suitcase had been placed in the canal, which clearly raises the possibility that Marta was still alive at either of those points.
Some of the expert evidence showed that some of the bruising on her body could have been caused by her being hit by a boat while she was still alive in that suitcase. He warned the jury not to think of the possibilities around that. Obviously, it's hard not to.
Something happened for him to think that she was dead. I don't think that he thought by putting her in a suitcase that would kill her. I think he put her in the suitcase because he thought she was dead. He probably, at that point, wasn't thinking straight. He just knew he needed to get rid of Marta's body. The thing is with people like Kocic, they use violence routinely. They know how far to go. They absolutely do know how far to go. The idea that they take it too far one day and kill someone, really, there's not a lot to support that. They know when to stop. I think whatever the challenge was that came from Marta, it was enough that he took it far enough to kill her, given himself permission to kill her, in fact, and thought that he had done exactly that.
The jury saw through Kocic's lies. The pathology was damning. After deliberating for just over a day, they rejected his defence.
Tomasz Kocic was found guilty of Marta's murder. He was convicted of murder and he was sentenced to 18.5 years as a minimum sentence recommendation of his life sentence.
Kocic was a very violent and dangerous man. At trial, Kocic, from my recollection, showed no remorse. He maintained a very cold demeanour as he sat in the dock at the Old Bailey. After the jury had delivered their verdict, we were very satisfied that we had secured justice for Marta, her family and her friends. And that is of paramount importance in any homicide case.
I think this case was a classic intimate partner homicide, very quick, very intense. In some ways it was different because Kujic was so extreme in his control of Marta, and I think everybody noticed the changes in her, so you could almost watch this playing out from a distance.
She'd obviously been in a very abusive relationship. He was very controlling of her, and instead of breaking up with her, allowing her to go her own way, he'd brutally beaten her, stuffed her into a suitcase and dumped her into a canal. Absolutely horrific.
I've prosecuted a number of homicide cases over the years, but this case particularly stands out in my time on the homicide unit. Marta Ligman was a young, happy, very kind and caring young lady who wanted to come to London to start a new life. The truth of what happened that night was that Marta was subjected to a violent and brutal attack by the man who she loved and cared for. That particular point at where Marta's body was discovered is a part of the canal in Little Venice that I visit frequently. And every time I visit that point at the canal, I always stop and think about Marta.
Tomasz Kujic had mentally and physically controlled Marta throughout their relationship. It ended with her murder. He tried to claim that Marta had died of a drug overdose and that he was innocent of her killing. But the pathologist's report made sure the jury saw through his lies. Although she never spoke out in life, in death, her body was able to reveal the truth about what had happened and put Kujic behind bars.
Is this for Gina?
Trains, now on Uber. Get 10% credit back with every ticket.
Fish not buying today?
Nah, nothing. Seems like they're as bored as I am.
I guess what you need is a Red Bull. The energy drink.
I don't need Red Bull for fishing.
Not for you. For them.
For fish?
Wait, watch. Red Bull gives them wings.
Not bad! But not good either. Fishing.
At Marks Electrical, we'll not only deliver our domestic appliances next day for free, we'll install them for you too. Our in-house team are trained in gas and electric appliance installation. Right now, get free installation on any Bosch freestanding laundry appliance and a 12-month supply of Ariel or Fairy detergent when you buy selected Bosch washing machines. No wonder we've been given a 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Shop now at Marks Electrical. Why wouldn't you?
If your meal routine is tired, don't give up hope just yet. Make dishes more inspired with a little help from Fleurette. Pasta, make it a salad. Breaded fish, it's in the bag. Chicken and veg, you know it. Baked potato, that's more like it. Why settle for just edible when you deserve incredible? Unleash some leafy loveliness and make it unflorettable.